This conference is no longer being recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
You're on it, sir.
I call to order the December 1st, 2021 Area Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. First item on the agenda is approval of the previous meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the October 27th, 2021 BZA public hearing.
I second.
Any corrections or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Now call the roll.
Okay, that's not on here. Oh, I guess it is on here, isn't it?
It's all right. Shall I?
Sure, let's
I
call
will.
the roll.
Steve Clevenger.
Present.
Gary Schroeder.
Present.
Michelle Dennis.
Present.
Ed Butts. Present. Tom Andrew. Frank Donaldson. Jen Decker.
Present.
Quorum present.
Thank you. New business.
BZA 2067 is to be continued to the January 26th meeting due to a legal ad issue. All other cases are ready to be heard.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll take the public hearing motion, please.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendations on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from checkpoint agencies.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? That motion carries. And I'll go ahead and take the continuance, please.
Steve, did you read your procedures yet? Are you supposed to do that for the meeting?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
You want a motion on the continuance?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a motion on
I'll
the
move to
continuance, please.
continue BZA 2067, Scott and Lori Williams, to the January 26th, 2021 BZA. 22. Thank
I
you.
second.
Thank you, Ryan.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. If you're here for Scott and Lori Williams, BZA 2067, that will be heard on January 26th of next year. That will not be heard this evening. I would like to briefly describe our procedures for this evening. Each case will be heard following a motion and a second from the board. We'll ask the staff to report on its findings. Following the staff report, we'll ask the petitioner to present his or her case, after which anyone wishing to support the petitioner's request for a variance or special exception will be asked to come forward. After hearing from the petitioner and those speaking on his or her behalf, we will ask those speaking against the petition to present their arguments. The petitioner will then be allowed to rebut arguments raised by those in opposition to his or her petition. Following the rebuttal, the board may wish to ask questions of the petitioner's supporters and opponents of the petition or of the staff. The staff will have the opportunity at this time to make any necessary clarifying comments. We will then vote by use of a prescribed ballot. 4 votes are necessary to make any decision. In the absence of 4 votes, either for or against, the petition is automatically continued to the next meeting. There are only 5 of us present this evening. Please observe the following guidelines for the sake and time and fairness to all. State your name and address for the record before you speak. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Do not repeat arguments that have been brought up by others. Remember that all visual aids used to support your arguments will remain the property of the board. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. Please step out of the room before using your cell phone. With that in mind, we'll hear our first case.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2062, James M. Tyler and Jennifer L. Neville. And let's see there. Petitioners requesting the following setback variance for a proposed 324 square foot revised from the 92221 swimming pool in an R1 single-family residential zone. Request number 1, to reduce the front setback to 14 feet from the minimum required 25 feet from the Ravinia Road right-of-way line UZO 2-1-7 and that's revised from the 9/22/21 request, and a second time on the 11/18/21, and to reduce the side setback to 14 feet from the minimum requirement of 25 feet from the Bexley Road right-of-way, UZO 2-1-7, also revised from 9/22/21 and second time on 11/18/21. On property located at 705 Bexley Road, Lot 16 in Hills and Dales Addition, West Lafayette, Wabash 18 Southeast, 23-4, and that was continued from the September 2021 ABZA hearing by inconclusive vote and from the October 2021 ABZA hearing per petitioner's request.
I second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
All right. I am Maureen. I am a planner here with the Area Plan Commission, and I'll be presenting case 2062 to you tonight. So, as you can see from the map here, the subject site is in Hills and Dales subdivision, east of Northwestern Avenue here near Purdue University. It is an R1 zone subdivision, which is typical single-family zoning district. There you go. This lot in particular is a bit unusually shaped. It has Bexley and Ravinia Road here that wrap around in this curved-like fashion, so it can be difficult to tell where Bexley ends and Ravinia begins, so that's why they asked for these two separate setback variances to be sure they cover both streets. The request has to do with a pool that they would like to build. They are proposing for it to be situated here on the east side of the house, accompanied by a new deck as well as a hot tub here. This garage addition is also proposed but does not require any variances, so tonight we're mostly focusing here on this pool. They've amended the request twice now. The original request was a 4-foot setback, then they adjusted the design to ask for a 12-foot setback, and now they've adjusted it once more to 14-foot. They've made the pool smaller, and so that it's 14 feet at any point from the pool here, you can see there. However, or I should say too, that there's a fence that's covering the pool, or it's wrapped all the way around here, so anything that would be built would not be visible. You can see that here from the site photos, that this fence is pretty adequate at keeping everything within the property line there. Sorry about that. Get back to, oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. Mouse is going all crazy here. Thank you. All right. So, however, this 14-foot setback is still significantly smaller than the required 25 feet for a pool. And even though it's, not visible in any way, the variance requests come down to whether, the request meets the findings. So staff believes that the application of the ordinance does not create a hardship. The lot is shaped in a way that makes it difficult to construct within a 25-foot setback, but a pool is not necessarily essential to a single-family dwelling. So the desire for a pool just isn't enough for staff to support the variance request. So we recommended denial for both requests. We did read one letter into the record during the September hearing, but we now have 2 additional letters come in. Should I go ahead and read those now, I would say?
Let's go ahead and wait for that, Petitioner.
Okay, sounds great. Then in that case, I'm here for questions, but that's all for me.
Thank you, Petitioner or Petitioner's representative.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Marianne Owen. I'm from the law firm of Stewart & Brannigan. I'm here on behalf of the petitioners, James Tyler and Jennifer Neville. And I'm here to request your approval of their variance request. As noted, there are 2 of them. One 14 feet from Bexley Road, another is 14 feet from Ravinia Road for the in-ground pool that's on the east side of their house that is enclosed in a fenced-in yard. The staff's report has just been presented, describes this request very well, except we believe the petitioner does deserve these variances. Now, at your September meeting, we did review the petitioner's position in regard to this request. Overall, the petitioners look to be respectful of their neighbors. That's the underlying current with this request. They look to place the pool away from the immediate adjacent landowners' homes in an open part of their lot and in a fenced-in area that takes advantage of the location of the adjacent landowners to better handle the sound impact on the neighborhood. These were items that have been raised in the past, and we'd like to identify them at this juncture. Now, something that we did not bring out in September, and our clients have been hesitant to put forward, but is relevant for this discussion, is that an important part of this request is to satisfy the needs of the family. And that in particular is that their son, is going to benefit from aquatic therapy due to his Crohn's disease. And that is generally addressed in private pools rather than public pools. And that is what's driving this request, and also driving the size of this pool. As you've seen in the changes of this request, they have modified it as best they can to reduce the size of, or shall we say, increase the size of the setback. But all in all, this is where they can get and still have a viable pool for this aquatic therapy. There are other pools in this area. This is not an unusual situation, but the location of the pool on this lot isn't an easy one, as was brought out in the staff report. But we've tried to place it in a location that does stay away from the immediate adjacent landowners and takes advantage of where sound would be, that being on the right-of-ways. And with the fencing, this is not going to be an improvement that is visible to passersby. So, to summarize where we are, very simply, this pool is a part of physical therapy for the petitioner's son. And there's also an aging mother who is going to benefit from it as well, but really the focus is on the son. We're being as respectful to the neighbors as they can by placing the pool in a place that's removed for those neighbors and within the area of the fence. We have in your letters, you'll find an immediately adjacent landowner supports the move to the proposed location and prefers it over being located near their house. Other neighbors who are across the street have also provided their support of this particular petition. And then we have noted, when you saw the overview of this lot, there is a significant mature tree that is on the southernmost line of this property. You'll see it noted as a 6-foot-tall wood, I'm sorry, that's the fence. The mature tree, it's 3 feet in diameter. The location of the pool was specifically made to avoid injuring that tree, given its history and its sheer beauty. So we are simply requesting the approval of these 2 variances and are here to answer any questions that you may have in regard to this request. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead and hear the letters now, please.
All right, the first letter says, "Hello, I represent Michael Shu in his capacity as guardian for Sally J. Sygrist. Ms. Sygrist owns the property at 715 Bexley Road, West Lafayette, Indiana, 47906. Ms. Sygrist's property lies directly west of the property in the above referenced variance proposal. While we actively remonstrated at the September BZA meeting, my client has informed me that they no longer wish to oppose the variance. My client would much prefer the pool on the east side of the property. If you have any further questions, please let me know. West Tyler Oaks." And then the second letter.
Thank you.
"To whom it may concern, we live at 722 Bexley Road, West Lafayette, Indiana, 47906, catty corner to the Tyler's home. We have no objection to their choosing to build on their land in the way they desire, whether a pool or addition or other changes. Thank you. Signed, Joanna Wu."
Thank you, Maureen. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? Comments, questions from the board?
So I was not present during the last hearing of this case, so forgive me if this question has already been touched on. It touched on it a bit in the staff comment section, but the existing privacy fence does go over into where I'm not used to seeing a fence. So it is noted in here that the administrative officer would have the right to approve this. My question is whether the administrative officer approved this existing fence prior to its construction, or if you simply don't have an issue with it at current, or how that fits, if you don't mind.
And we have our West Lafayette Administrative Officer.
Thank you.
Chad Spitznagel, Building Commissioner. I did approve this fence a couple years ago. We came through ordinance committee that said on a side yard setback, they could allow a fence to be higher than 42 inches in the side yard. So since it is an odd-shaped lot, the frontage lot, or the side yard in this case, since the house is facing north, the side yard was still allowed 42 inches or higher in there, so
Okay.
have approved it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spitznagel. Any other questions? Gary?
Just a comment, I was here last meeting, we kind of had an inconclusive vote. It looks like they've redesigned that and maybe worked with the neighborhood, and we just don't see the opposition today that we had before. So it looks like they've worked out some of their issues, and I'll support this petition.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, we have 2 ballots.
All right, request for variance number 1 is passed 5-0. Request number 2 for variance on Bexley is also passed 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Both variances have passed, and we'll hear the second case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2063 Reasons LLC. Petitioners requesting the following variance to legitimize an existing multifamily dwelling originally constructed as Chauncey Townhomes Plan Development and to permit the addition of a third bedroom in each unit, which would create a total of three bedroom units in an R4 W, that's single family, two family, and multifamily residential zone. That would be to allow a lot width of 50.68 feet instead of the required 70 feet, UZO 4-2-1, revised 10/21/2021. After further review, the variance is unnecessary. That's request number 2. Request number 3, to allow a 10-foot setback instead of the required 12-foot setback from Chauncey, UZO 4-2-2, and to allow 5 parking spaces instead of the required 9 parking spaces, UZO 4-6-4.
I second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff. Mr. O'Gara.
Okay. Yeah, this project is sort of a product of its time. The village has certainly changed since January of 2004. That original plan development was designed to try to look a little bit like a converted single-family home, of which there were a lot more in the village at that time. And that this was saw as a sort of a steady increase in density while still maintaining that urban form. So that's kind of what went into that plan development. There was, of course, a single-family home there prior that had been converted, and obviously its useful life had come to an end, and so the original Chauncey Townhomes PD came through to try to responsibly redevelop the site and have it try to fit in with the village as City Council was sort of imagining it should develop at that time. The PD did restrict the basement of that building of the new building to storage only, and so there was no allowance for an increase in residential density for that project, and you cannot do a minor modification to a plan development increasing residential density. So they're a bit stuck. So they could either rezone it to a new plan development, renegotiate it, and sort that out, which is a big effort, even for a small project, or try to find a conventional rezone option that could allow the current building, which isn't super old compared to a lot of other buildings in the village, but allow it to extend its useful life until such time that perhaps properties adjacent to them might be consolidated for a future, more denser project, which of course we have plenty of examples in the village now. So this effort is to try to do just that, which is why staff is in favor of these variances. The parking requirements that they're asking for are very much in keeping with a lot of newer projects in this immediate vicinity in terms of this uptick in density and the allotment or the allowance of including a handicap space so that by right project could take place. Of course, the building was built to a negotiated standard, so it necessarily runs afoul of some R4W requirements. And so since the building footprint is not expanding with this project, this is essentially an interior refit. There's a lot of things that would normally offend us as staff that are just off the table here. There's really no one will be able to really see much of a difference from the outside. So in terms of the ballot items, it's our opinion that there's really no injury to the public health, safety, or general welfare with this matter. Use and value is not going to negatively impact neighboring properties. Again, the building footprint is what you see. You're not really going to see much changes from the exterior. Number 4, this is a situation that is not common. It's pretty rare when a plan development rezones back to a conventional zone, but yet they're not redeveloping. They actually want to try to make use of the structure that was negotiated. That's a pretty rare event, so this is a pretty unusual situation. But staff is sympathetic in that since we have the downtown plan and its density policies, increasing density on this block would certainly be supported. And so this is a very modest increase in density, so it's sort of trending in the right direction. So from a comp planning perspective, this is, it's moving in the right direction, and it would certainly support a consolidation and overall redevelopment with adjacent sites if the stars align. So we don't see this as a self-imposition of trying to achieve some sort of economic gain. This is essentially trying to make an existing structure extend its useful life until such time as that useful life ends. So in our opinion, the variances do provide the minimum relief to achieve this modest expansion. And we recommend approval of variances 1, 3, and 4, and then of course 2 is pulled. So happy to answer any questions. I think they have a simple site plan here for you. Thank you.
Petitioner, his or her representative.
Yes, good evening. Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, 250 Main Street, on behalf of Petitioner. I would like to thank the staff and Ryan and Maureen for their work on this project. And this, as Ryan alluded to in the history, has been a long, ongoing project with the O'Neills to go from probably the only thing unique about the plan development was that it was common, and there was nothing unique about the actual structure, and that it was intended to blend in. And so it's been a long process to get here through the rezones and ultimately here today with the variance. The parking change is to add a fully accessible space, which we think, and that's near and dear to our clients' heart and important to providing accessibility throughout the community. And as Ryan mentioned, we'll extend the life of this project till ultimately it gets a full life cycle one day next to the brand new fancy schmancy City Hall. We'd be happy to answer any questions, but respectfully request approval.
Thank you, Mr. Shulman. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the board? Hearing none, we have 3 ballots.
All right, request number 1 is granted 5-0. Request number 2 is granted 5-0. Request number 4, it should be actually, request number 2 was omitted, so request number 3 was 5-0, and then request number 4 is also 5-0.
Those 5 variances, or 3 variances have been approved. And I'll hear the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2064, Mark Your Space, Michael Sobel. Petitioner is requesting the following sign variances for the Freightliner dealership and service center for a commercial truck fleet, truck country, in an I-3 industrial zone. Request number 1, to allow the total signage on the sign lot to be 400.25 square feet instead of the maximum allowed 260 square feet, UZO 4-8-6. To allow a freestanding sign height of 60 feet instead of the maximum allowed 24 feet, UZO 4-8-6. To allow a freestanding sign measuring 251.75 feet instead of the maximum allowed 160 square feet, UZO 4-8-6. And requests 4 and 5 have been withdrawn by the petitioner. On property located at 6584 Hine Drive, Dayton, Sheffield 5, that's southeast half, 23-22-3, continued from the October 2021 ABZA hearing per petitioner's request.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Mr. Hiddle.
Thank you. David Hiddle with the Area Plan Commission. This case involves a property that is in the town of Dayton. It is a 25-acre lot just north and east of the intersection of Interstate 65 and State Road 38. It is zoned I-3. It is developed, I think they're putting the finishing touches on the site, with a large building to be used by an outfit called Truck Country, which does truck sales and service. The building is there, and I believe that, again, that pretty much all that's left is to put the signs in. The site was zoned I-3 in 2018. It's a variance of development standards request. It's a 3-pronged request, so it involves a variance involving height for that freestanding sign you see there on the sign program in the upper left-hand corner. Size for that freestanding sign, it's larger than is allowed by the ordinance. And then the third variance involves overall sign area. So that freestanding sign combined with this sign, the Stoops sign down here, oh, come on. Combined to be larger than the ordinance allows. There's limited variance history in the area that's pertinent to this case. 2010, there was a variance denied to McAllister Machinery, which is the neighboring site to the east, which would have allowed for additional signage. There was a variance denied or withdrawn at the Battleground exit off of Interstate 65. Was that denied or withdrawn? That would have allowed for an additional height on a freestanding sign a couple months ago. Denied. Okay, withdrawn. So there's not a great history in this area of high-rise signs, except for the intersection of 65 and State Road 26, where the City of Lafayette has a history of granting these signs, and as you go there, there's a sort of a gauntlet of really tall signs as you drive by. I think one of the things that's nice about 65 as it passes through the county is the refreshing lack of billboards and tall signs, which tend to create clutter, I think, is a general perception of that. Staff is not recommending support for any of these. We urge you to deny the triplet variance set here for a number of reasons. First, they're just not needed. There is no signage competition. I'm going to try this again. There. That's a view looking north along Interstate 65 at the subject property in the background. So there's no vertical competition of any sort, not only any signs, but really very limited trees or anything else that might keep you from seeing a 24-foot tall sign as opposed to a 60-foot tall sign. There's nothing special about the site that says that the ordinance shouldn't apply to it in the way that it applies to every other site. This is not a destination that would call for impulse stopping. It's not a gas station with a convenience store where your typical motorist might see it and decide to stop to get a drink or something. This is a very specialized destination. It's a truck sales and service place where you're probably going to be getting there by GPS or by familiarity. Another concern is with what's happened at the intersection of 26 and 65, where one variant sort of begets another. It's hard to say to the next guy that you can't have your double tall sign, even though we allowed the guy last month to do the same thing. It's obviously not a legal precedent, but it's a practical precedent. It kind of creates a functional problem for the board to enforce the ordinance down the road. And simply the findings aren't met. There's just no hardship here that says that they should be allowed a sign twice as tall as the ordinance allows everybody else and more sign space than is allowed for everybody else. The findings just simply aren't met. So, staff is not supporting the request and recommends denial of all three components of the variance. Would be happy to answer any questions. And Mr. Chair, we do have 3 letters here, 2 in opposition and 1 in support, which we read into the record at your pleasure.
I'll wait for the petition.
Okay.
That's the case. Thank you, Mr. Hiddle. Petitioner, his or her representative. I think we can all see it.
Kevin? Yeah. Give one to staff. That's what I was going to ask. Make sure they have one for the record.
Thank you. All right. Good evening. Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter, and Schreier, representing the petitioners. Michael Sobel and Brandon Hawley with the petitioners, or petitioner, are here as well. As mentioned, we are requesting the 3 variances that were discussed. We originally filed for 5 variances involving 4 different signs, and we have reduced that request to 3 variances involving 2 signs. One of the signs that we're talking about is currently affixed to the building facade on the west side of the building, and the second sign is a freestanding pole sign shown on the site plan there. Did want to mention that we have one more change to our request, which I apologize for last minute, but the petitioner has indicated that they are willing to reduce the overall site signage by 45 square feet. So to the extent that, I just wanted to offer that up. I apologize for the late notice, but that's something that was just decided. We have, excuse me, reviewed the staff report, and we do agree with the staff that granting of these variances will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. Did want to point out that the petitioner anticipates hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue from sales tax generated from this site, so wanted to make sure we pointed that out. With respect to the other elements of the variance, though, we do disagree. First of all, we think that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The owner of the ground that is the subject of the petition also owns the property adjacent to the east. You have the owner of the property adjacent to the north and south has submitted a letter in support of this request, and the land immediately adjacent to the west is the interstate. So we don't believe that this is going to have any impact on the value or use of those properties. In addition, the signage is not going to obstruct the view to any property, and it doesn't create an unfair advantage because there's no similar uses in the area. And did want to point out that all of this, or the freestanding sign does meet the setback requirement, so it doesn't encroach upon any required setbacks of the ordinance. Secondly, we wanted to mention that the terms of the zoning ordinance, we believe, are being applied to a situation that's not common to other properties in the same district. So Truck Country is doing business as Stoops. Stoops is a Freightliner franchisee and also a Western Star franchisee. Therefore, it's necessary to identify all three of those businesses with the signage. And we believe that creates a unique situation that's not common to other properties. Additionally, safety is a concern, and safety renders this situation unique. The truck drivers will need to see the facility in order to timely exit in a safe manner, and the increase in the size and the height of the signage will help with that safety, help provide that additional safety measure. We've handed you a printout from the United States Sign Council's sign legibility rules of thumb, and wanted to point out that for multi-lane rights of way, freestanding signs they recommend need to be between 639 and 850 square feet in size, where the speed limit is between 65 and 75 miles an hour, which is what the speed limit on I-65 is in this area. So our request falls well below that recommended standard. And also wanted to point out, as I think, well, one is you can see from the photos I handed out, the site or the building does sit a substantial distance away from the interstate. We think that makes this a unique property because as you look at the properties to the north, those are set closer to I-65. So we think that makes this situation unique. Additionally, we think that the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in an unusual and unnecessary hardship. Again, we pointed out the need to identify all three businesses. I don't want to rehash the point about safety, but we mentioned safety. I did want to point out, though, that this is not necessarily a destination, not some place that clients plan to make the trip to. The petitioner estimates that 75% of its business at the service center is an unplanned visit. So it is not a destination as indicated, at least in our opinion, as indicated in the staff report. We do not believe that the hardship involved is self-imposed or solely based on perceived reduction of economic gain. Again, we talked about safety. We would reiterate that same point as being a need or the reason for this, one of the reasons for this request. So the request is not solely based on a perceived reduction or restriction of economic gain. And then finally, wanted to point out that the variance does not provide, that the variance requests do provide the minimum relief needed to alleviate our hardship. Like I mentioned, we started with several requests for signs. We have reduced that substantially, again, reduced it today. We are doing our best to try to minimize what we're asking for. So we think that we have satisfied that element. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Thank you.
And quick question, Mr. Burns, does the petitioner need to modify anything on the petition? I just wanted to make sure that the numbers were clear. This is for your overall signage, which would be request number 1. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it would go down from 400.75 square feet to 355.75 square feet, total signage.
And that would be the amendment requested. Does the staff have any position on that? Doesn't change that. Thank you.
And just to explain, what would be eliminated is the part below the line on the facade sign. So there's a Stoops facade sign on the west side of the building. The language or the wording below that line is what would be eliminated, and that's how we would come up with that 45 feet.
Is that on the next slide?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, right down in the, so underneath Freightliner where the line is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we had letters. Mr. Edel?
Three letters. The first one is in support. It's from Guthrie P. Carr, as a member of the Carr Family Farm, LLC. To whom it concerns, this is dated November 29th, 2021. I am writing on behalf of Carr Family Farm, LLC, the owner of the property consisting of approximately 35 acres and located directly north of the property that is the subject of this variance petition. Carr Family Farm, LLC supports all of the variance requests filed by Mark Your Space. I am also one of the owners of the property consisting of approximately 1.76 acres and located directly south of the subject property. Kimberly Carr and I, as the co-owners of our property, support all the variance requests in BZA 2064 filed by Mark Your Space. And then this is a letter in opposition, not dated. My name is Ron Kohler, and I'm a member of the Dayton Town Council. I've been actively involved in Dayton affairs for decades, and I was the clerk treasurer for 12 years. I'm now at the end of my 6th year on the Town Council. I'm here today to speak against the 3 variances requested in BZA 2064. Dayton is growing, and Stoops Freightliner is now part of that growth. We welcome them, as we do all new businesses. But I, for one, am not in favor of bulldozing the standards that all businesses need to abide by. There is no compelling reason to allow these variances, in my opinion, and I believe they will be detrimental to the town in many ways. Residents of Dayton, especially in Deerfield, don't want to look up to a 60-foot sign looming to the west. The State Road 38 exit from the interstate serves both Lafayette and Dayton, and a sign of this magnitude is not a positive reflection on either. I also believe it is completely unnecessary. The increased sizes requested for the other signs are also inappropriate, and UZA maximums are sufficient for them, like they are for everyone else. Many of Dayton Town Councils over the years struggled to protect Dayton's small-town identity from outside pressures. The land use plans implemented when SIA first came in and made it clear that Dayton will need to push back when something is counter to that goal. That's why I'm here to push back against this petition and the variances under consideration now. I'm asking you to deny all 3 variances. Ron Kohler. The final letter is from Kay Spires of 620 Clifty Falls Lane in Dayton, Indiana. To whom it may concern, my husband and I moved to Dayton in 1998 when we bought a house in the Deerfield Farm subdivision. The subdivision was fairly new at that time, and a park was supposed to be planned just down the road from our house. Instead of a park, we got McAllister machinery, complete with dust, bright lights, and loud noise. Now there is a semi-truck dealership and garage going in on the other side of it. I am writing to emphatically state my opinion that the semi-dealership's petition to allow a ridiculously high sign by the interstate and increased sign sizes in other places should be denied. I agree with the staff report's recommendation of denial of all the variances. I don't believe the requested variances are in the best interests of the town of Dayton or its residents. They will only serve to diminish the appearance of our town entrance and set a bad precedent for signs for other businesses. I encourage you to vote no on each of the variances requested in BZA 2064. Requestfully submitted, Kay Spires.
Thank you, Mr. Edel. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition?
Hi, my name's Jen Monego, and I live at 625 Harrison Circle in Dayton. I'm the current president of the Dayton Town Council, and I was surprised to originally learn about this petition for sign variances from another Dayton resident, actually. I feel it's unfortunate for both the town and the dealership that I now find myself in a position to be here speaking against the petition of a new business in town. If I had known before, I would have tried to explain how a 60-foot sign at a main interstate exit to Lafayette and Dayton would be exactly opposite of the town's goals for the entrance of our town. I actually believe that it's not the appearance we would want for Dayton or for Lafayette. I would have explained that the UZO sign size limitations were created for a reason and they should comply with the maximum sizes. Dayton has adopted the unified zoning ordinance and it offers consistency that should be followed whenever possible. Deviating from it violates the standards that it has set across the county. I think that the variances requested in this petition cannot be justified in any way and will only set a precedent for the businesses we expect to see in the near future just north of the dealership. I know there was a letter from the Carr family who owns the property north of the dealership, and it makes sense that they would be in favor of it so that when they sell that property, they can say to potential buyers, look, you can put up giant signs. So I would like to add that we're working to get a comprehensive plan for Dayton, and we have a grant application in the works. And part of that comprehensive plan process will be to create a positive brand and vision for our town. And I would really hate for our unique historic small town to be identified by a gigantic sign of a semi-dealership. So the 60-foot sign and the increased sign sizes are inappropriate and unnecessary, and I hope you will vote to deny these petitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening. I'm Cindy Marsh, 749 Shady Lane in Dayton, and I've lived in Dayton for 47 years, and I'm president of the Dayton Area Community Coalition. The coalition was formed to, among other things, preserve and enhance our small town aura and the quality of life of Dayton residents. We also challenge proposals such as these requests for the sign variances that run counter to our mission. Now, I'm told that your decision tonight is final, and if you pass it, the only recourse the town of Dayton will have is to take it to court. And it just seems inherently unfair to me to have this issue come up now, you know, to where the town of Dayton wasn't aware that this was going to be part of it until now. I mean, I think Dayton has been very supportive to this point, and it's very uncomfortable to be here speaking against a petition by a new business in town. But I feel like we've been put in that position, and I'm really sorry to have to be here, but here I am. But I do have to ask and wonder why the town wasn't given the common consideration of just even informing us that they would be asking for this. I mean, I think we found out initially because someone informed the council president, just a resident. And eventually they received notification, I've heard, from the Area Plan Commission, but it was before you guys, or at least somebody had it, before the town even knew about it. But about the variances in particular, I agree that the huge sign will only negatively impact the initial impressions of Dayton, something that we're working hard to improve and preserve, and it would also substantially change the essential character of our town, and as others have said, will set a precedent. And while nearby businesses support local traffic and interstate traffic, I think the semi-dealership will focus primarily on the interstate traffic, but we still hope that they will be contributing business in our town. I just ask that you consider the town of Dayton and its residents and what we're trying to do for the town, and vote no on these variances. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition? Please come forward.
Al Beavers, 758 Main Street, Dayton. I'm going to speak a little bit on my experience as an over-the-road truck driver, many years, many miles. With today's technology, with GPS and voice-activated instrumentation and what have you, all that is readily available to the truck driver. It surprised me when I heard that they actually have a percentage of breakdowns of their product. That doesn't say a lot, but when a truck driver breaks down on the side of the road, almost everybody gets a call out. They communicate with each other. They let you know what's going on ahead. As far as the safety values of finding the exit and approaching it, and even getting straight to the dealership, that's all in the GPS. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. So having a glaring note on the side of the highway, I don't see that's something that really needs to be there. The ordinance as it stands, and the way I read it, should be plenty. And we do welcome this operation to be here, but we like it to be fitted into what I would think the board or the county would consider fitting it into a more urban environment, including its aesthetics. So I really can't see any reason for that, such a large signage to advertise when all that will be readily available to internet and GPS communications, as well as the truckers communicating among themselves what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition? If not, Mr. Riley, rebuttal?
Since it came up, I've got another display here. Can you hear me? Okay. You can see there we've identified a 60-foot high sign, which is what we're asking for. So you can see it. I hardly think that qualifies as an obstruction or an eyesore as indicated. You know, there's, as was mentioned by staff, I believe, the city of Lafayette's got tall signs there right off the interstate, and I don't know. I would not classify those as an eyesore, and so obviously just down the road we have the same, a similar size sign being used. When there's a suggestion that they're not supporting the town, they constructed a new building. They hired currently 28 employees. They plan to hire 10 more next year. So I don't think that classifies as not being supportive of the local community. In terms of being notified, the town was given the 10-day notice prior to this hearing. Was a discussion had with the town? No, it wasn't, because frankly, we didn't think it was going to get anywhere based on what we've seen in the past, so we didn't have the discussion with the town. And the other thing I wanted to mention, no homeowners are going to be impacted by this. The nearest homes are separated from the sign by multiple I-3 properties. And then in terms of small town identity, all this ground, or this ground north of our property, is zoned I-3. Those are going to be businesses. They're interstate lots. They're going to be larger national type businesses. You don't see a lot of mom and pop businesses located on interstate adjacent lots because of the cost of purchasing and developing those lots. So this is in line with what's going on with the planned, in our opinion, the planned development of that area. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Gary.
Question, and this may be for staff, as I look at the one exhibit where it talked about the bay numbers being incidental signage and other service and parts. Are those all calculated into the signage
No, the incidental signage, the banner signs, all the other signs that you're seeing on those elevations are exempt from the calculation. The calculation only applies to identification signs, so the freestanding sign and then the large stoops wall sign.
Okay, those are the only ones, gotcha.
Yeah.
All the incidentals don't include, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Any other questions? Jen?
I appreciate the giving us a perspective of what a 60-foot tall sign is, and this may be an answer for staff, and this may not be an answer that we know, but on 28 and I-65, there's a large trucking dealership as well that I think used to be a Harley dealership, but they have an extraordinarily tall sign there as well. Do we have a metric or an understanding is that larger, smaller than 60? I appreciate the picture, but it's not quite as good of an understanding. Do you know where I mean, across from the new and NTK? 28 and I-65, where that overpass.
65.
I think it's Walsh Trucking.
It's on the north side of that overpass.
Yeah, it's on the north side of that overpass, and I guess the reason I ask is for perspective, because
Right.
in this picture, obviously, that you've demonstrated, a 60-foot tall sign does not look all that large. However, standing outside or driving through that overpass, I just wonder from a perspective standpoint, and again, it may be an answer that we don't know the
Right.
answer to.
Do you mean the intersection with 26?
No, I mean 28, like Frankfurt, Tippecanoe
Oh.
Clinton line.
Okay.
I think it used to be Harvest Moon.
Yeah, well, I don't have a frame of reference for that one. That's obviously out of county, so,
Sure, yeah.
yeah.
This may help. So this is the same, I believe, same or similar 60-foot sign. Same sign? Same sign, 90-foot sign.
Thank you. That is helpful.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we have ballots.
All right, on request number 1, those in favor, 1. Those against, 4. Request number 1 fails. Request number 2, those in favor, 2. Those against, 3. Request number 2 fails.
Request number 2 is inconclusive, and will be continued to the next meeting.
It is, got to get a 4.
That's that 4, right? So it doesn't fail, it's...
Got to have a 4. Yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize, inconclusive. Excellent. Nice catch. And on request number 3, those in favor, 1. Those voting to deny, 4. Request number 3 fails.
So request number 1 and 3, dealing with the total signage and the size of the freestanding sign, both fail. The freestanding sign height has an inconclusive vote. It was 2 yes, 3 no. We require 4 in either direction to approve or disapprove. So that case will be heard again, or that particular variance will be heard again at the next meeting in January, depending on what the petitioner wants to do. And we'll hear our last case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2068, Coe and Courtney Knox. Petitioners requesting a special exception to permit an agricultural rental hall in the AW zone with a maximum capacity of 295 people. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to midnight, and Friday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., with all outdoor activities ceasing at midnight. The property is located at 5124 Jackson Highway, Shelby 08 Northeast 23-5, UZO 3-2. Second. We need a second.
Yep, we need a second, please.
I second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff. Maureen, please.
Yes, so this is case 2068. You can see here the site is zoned AW, agricultural wooded, as is land adjacent to the north, northwest, and south. You can see there's some floodplain zoning associated with an unnamed tributary to Indian Creek lines, the western property edge. Adjacent to the east, land is zoned agricultural. There's not been any recent BZA variances or special exceptions in the area. Just wanted to note that. So area land use patterns. The site plan submitted by petitioner is maybe not as descriptive as it could be. Let me get this to work here. Sorry about this testy mouse here. It's understood that the idea here is to use the site for weddings and parties and other like events. Noted on the site plan here, there's an existing barn to be part of the new structure. They hope to have the parties and such in. And the new barn to be similar to size to existing barn is shown here as well. Another existing barn is also along the north property line, an existing guest house, which is going to be available for rent as well as a proposed 79 parking space area. There's also noted an outdoor area here between the two existing structures. This area, per GIS, we approximated to be 440 feet from the back of the nearest house on Thumbleweed Lane. So if you go back here, there's this house here that is off of a road, Thumbleweed, so we measured that to be the distance from the nearest residence, I guess you could say. There is a house here as well, but it's owned by petitioner, so that's something to be noted. Trees also border the site to the north and east and partially along the west property line. It appears that the majority of the 12-acre site has been in crop production, and the petitioner also stated that it was at one time a horse farm. Let's get here. There we go. Okay, so as far as traffic goes and transportation, the proposed agricultural rental hall is reached by a 750-foot long existing private drive from Jackson Highway, classified as a rural secondary arterial by a thoroughfare plan. There was a note on the site plan here that they will plan to expand the drive to 20 feet wide. There's also light poles indicated here, here and here, these two areas along the private drive. A commercial drive permit from the County Highway Department would be also required prior to building permit issuance. So just based on a quick review of the site plan, an email from County Highway states that petitioners, quote, would need to show that the existing drive location would satisfy intersection sight distance for the operating speed on Jackson Highway. Auxiliary lines and larger taper sizes may be required and will be determined during the plan review and permitting process based on traffic data, end quote. The parking requirements would be met if the proposed 79 spaces were put in, because there's only 74 that are required. However, just to state, parking lots in the AW zone do not need to be paved, except for the accessible parking spaces. Those would need to be paved. Thinking about environmental and utility considerations, IDEM approval will also be necessary for the well on the site. This change in use, I guess, would require a commercial septic system. So that would need to be approved by the Indiana State Board of Health prior to the County Health Department's issuance of a permit. The site plan doesn't really show anything about drainage or anything like that, so an approval from the County Drainage Board is also required before an occupancy permit can be issued. Another thing to note is that while an agricultural rental hall is permitted by special exception in the AW zone, the zone does not permit any eating or drinking establishments like a restaurant or a bar. So for this reason, the UZO places a limit on food drink service associated with this use. There cannot be any preparation of food on the site, essentially, so all the food would have to be brought in by some kind of catering, licensed caterer. So regarding the ballot items, Section 3.1 of the UZO does authorize, again, like I said, agricultural rental hall in the AW zone. So staff therefore has kind of two different routes of opinion here. So hopefully this all makes sense to you. So the first route here, we are recommending denial. There's a combination of things here that we have concerns about. It kind of comes back to the site plan, just lacking some information. Writing light poles, we're not quite sure how many or where they kind of would go. It's a little unclear. So we have some just concerns about lighting, essentially. So we would just need more information on that. We're also concerned about the noise production of the site. Petitioner stated there will be outdoor noise, which we're assuming will be music and such. They said it would end by midnight, but we're still just not sure about having amplified music outside of the structure in the first place, because this could be a big nuisance to the neighboring residencies. And then staff is also concerned about the hours of operation. We think it's a bit excessive, the time frame they've proposed. So we are thinking maybe if we were to reduce those a bit, then that could potentially be more reasonable. So that would, as is, we would say denial. But if there is an approval, we had come up with some commitments and conditions here that I'll read. So if approved, the commitments would be to limit the number of attendees to 295 people. As well as, second commitment, all amplified music must take place inside of the structure. Only non-amplified music shall be permitted in the outside event area. And then the following 6 conditions. 1, to change the hours of operation to 8 a.m. to 10:30 on Sunday, and then through Sunday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. to midnight Fridays and Saturdays. So again, reducing those hours a bit. Second would be approval from the County Highway Department for a commercial driveway. Third condition, approval from the County Building Commissioner for building design approval and permit coordination. The fourth, approval from the Indiana State Department of Health and the Tippecanoe County Health Department for an on-site sewage disposal system. Again, that would be for commercial use. Fifth, to approval from the Tippecanoe County Survey's Office for on-site drainage. And the last is to submit a revised site plan to show the location of proposed lighting along the drive, a little more descriptively, parking lot and on the buildings, and to dimension the buildings and their setbacks, because the drawing is a little hard to really understand the setbacks and dimensions there. So any revisions to the site plan needed, any revisions to the site plan needed because of any of the above would need to be submitted, essentially. So I hope that makes sense. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
thank you for your time, and thank you, planners, for all the time that you put into reviewing this. And Co Knox, and then you want my residential address? 6731 Bottlebrush Lane, Naples, Florida, 34109. Then can I start talking now? All right. So I apologize, I've never done this before. Kind of new to the process as a property owner and an entrepreneur. We kind of are just seeing how this works. As I started, the Plan Commission has been very helpful in kind of helping us understand how this, the steps forward. Some of the details in terms of why our plan is bare bones, not very descriptive, is our value put towards the commission and zoning and wanting to meet requirements of that prior to commencing an endeavor of creating a agricultural rental hall. Our family lived at this property for a handful of years. We hosted a number of events that actually were in excess of the number that we've listed here for Purdue Plant Science socials as well as private weddings. Essentially, we think the property sitting vacant is kind of a waste for what we see as a very beautiful part of Midwest Indiana. My wife and I are both born and raised here in Indiana. Never really planned on moving. We actually thought we were going to stay at this property forever. Got pulled away to Florida. So with these plans, and if there's approval from the commission on this vote, we will be much more descriptive with the site plan, drainage, commercial septic. We will work with the Department of Health and anybody else that was listed in here that's required. I am a contractor is my primary job, so working through the permitting process with architects, engineers, all of that, I am somewhat used to, just again, not this whole area plan and commission process. So if there's any questions or concerns with any of our adjacent neighbors or any of you guys, feel free to ask and hopefully address it.
I guess my first question, are the commitments and conditions acceptable to you?
I think, again, with their lack of knowledge on how this works, we kind of just filled out the forms applications as what we thought seemed reasonable. The commitments, conditions that are outlaid in here, I think, are very reasonable, and we would comply to them, yes.
Okay. And we'll probably have more questions for you later.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition?
Steve, I just had a technical question.
Sure, go ahead,
Since
Gary.
there's conditions, should we modify the motion to approve this with the conditions? So they're part of the...
Well, I think that what's being called for here, by the way, the staff has set it up, is that you have the option to vote to deny. You also
Right.
have, I'm sorry?
Right.
Yeah, and you also have the option, when you fill out your ballot, to approve with the conditions. Technically, you could probably approve them with any conditions you chose, but the staff has laid out the conditions and the commitments they believe are important, and the petitioner just indicated that they were agreeable to them. So in my view, as a practical matter, you got two choices. One, denial, as they recommend, or approval with commitments. So I don't know that we have to change the motion necessarily because of the way the staff report is structured. You have two options on your
I think we have more than two options.
What would you say?
I mean, I think the conditions
Yeah.
are separate
I
from
agree.
the approval denial, that staff recommends denial without the conditions. Usually what we have done in the past is if there are conditions, we usually read that into the motion so that they're on the record as being.
And they're in the minute, or they're in the report. So
No, they are in the report, so
You can read it.
I think we can assume that the conditions.
I don't mind making a motion, Steve, that I modify to hear and vote on BZA 2068, Co and Courtney Knox, with commitment and conditions as outlined in the staff report.
And do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, so our motion has been modified, so this is with the conditions, so we have the modified hours of operation and all of that. and the limit on the number of people.
So we'd be voting on that.
So we
with
will be voting on that with those conditions as outlined in the staff report. Thank you, Gary. That being said, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition to the petition?
A few documents for you.
Grab Jennifer's. Since staff already has one. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you very much for listening today. My name is Peter Baker. I'm from 2900 Foxler Drive. We are in the east property line adjoining the associated property here. I just found out about this on Sunday. As of yet, I have not received an official notification of this special exception. I found out about it from some neighbors. So we worked very quickly to try to understand basically what our neighbors thought about this as well.
Is your property directly adjacent to this property?
It is, yes. Directly adjacent
Can we
on the
check
eastbound.
on if they received or should have? Or continue, please, sorry.
All right. So I read the staff's report. That was really the only information we had associated with this. And there are several points that I would like to raise. So what I understand is there are some decision criteria. So criteria number 3 is associated with public impact, and criteria 4 is more for regional or neighborly impact. So there are several items that I wanted to mention. So regarding decision or multiple point 3, we wanted to raise that the area, specifically the driveway of this property, is in a very dangerous situation. There have been 2 fatalities there at their driveway in the last 4.5 years. The first of these 2 occurred February 26th of 2017 in the evening when a driver failed to navigate the curve, which is immediately prior to their driveway, went down an embankment, launched into the air, and then crashed into a pole on the property and killing himself. And then more recently, which you may have remembered from news reports, there was an accident on September 21st at 9:30 in the morning, and a 3-year-old child was killed in the exact same manner. Essentially what is happening is that curve, there's a blind curve, so that as people are coming around, they are going faster than the posted speed limit. They fail to navigate the curve, they go down an embankment, launch up, and then basically crash into that area. So I've attached a few pictures that just demonstrate, again, the danger of that area. The second page is then just trying to highlight, to show you what the curve is physically like. So this is a westbound view. As you are traveling down Jackson Highway, you're unable to see the driveway from this property until you have really exited the curve. The second picture then is from the driveway looking eastbound and again looking down Jackson Highway. So essentially there's not enough time for people that are navigating through that curve to be able to see traffic coming in and out of the driveway. And if now we have 295 additional people plus caterers plus everybody else trying to enter and exit through that driveway, there are going to be more fatalities and more accidents. The third page is basically from the National Highway Transportation and Safety information that just talks about how much braking distance is required for that amount of space. From Beacon, there is approximately 188 feet from the driveway to the curve. Per NHTSA, it requires at least 265 feet for the speed that people realistically travel in that area. In terms of, so essentially then, I mentioned the ditch on the north side of the road. There's a full wood line on the south side of the road. So that leaves no room for error for any of the individuals as they're navigating through this, and that's how both of those fatalities occurred. Additionally, through the spring and fall for a several-week stretch that is heavily traveled by semis from an agricultural standpoint, hauling manure and hauling grain up and down that stretch of lane. And they also travel very fast. And semi-trucks are going to have a much harder time stopping for traffic that is trying to enter or exit that facility. So we'd be very concerned about a sharp increase in vehicle accidents and fatalities if this exception is approved. In terms of injury to the neighborhood, so we calculated there's approximately 38 households within 3/10 of a mile of the proposed barn. We then set out to poll all of the members of this neighborhood, and they overwhelmingly agreed that the special exception would permanently injure them. We were able to, it's actually 21 of the 38 households we were able to contact in the short period of time from Sunday through today, and 100% of them wanted to have this rejected, the special exception rejected. They cited a multiple of concerns, the first being that the Knox family doesn't even live in the anymore. They live in Florida, as they have already mentioned. So why should we as neighbors suffer the consequences of having this barn when they're going to reap the financial rewards and bring the money out of state? Drop in property values is a concern. We personally would not have bought a house or built a house right next to this property if we knew there was a party barn there. And we feel that we'd have a much harder time reselling our property. They currently have multiple parties out there. It's been several years since they have lived at that property, but when they've had those parties, we have been up till midnight, 1 o'clock. Noise is coming through our walls, our kids are staying awake, and that's just them partying. We can imagine if this was 7 days a week, it would be hell for us. Increased traffic concerns, it's a very mature residential property. I mean, all of these properties were there well prior to the Knox family moving into that property, and now again, we feel like we would have to suffer as a result of them wanting to put this party barn in place. In terms of increased sewage and runoff, the barn property actually does flow down through several adjoining properties, which would include mine. So there is the possibility that runoff and others from the parking lot and other areas would affect our properties. Increased light pollution from having the barn and the light poles, negative impact on the wildlife in the area, including deer and turkey and foxes, and there's even is protected by the state of Indiana, the eastern box turtle, which is present on our adjoining properties. And just a quick web search showed that there's 77 entertainment venues already in the Greater Lafayette area. So why should we suffer, again, when there's so many residential properties around? The next page is a graph of all of the properties, and the reds are the ones who do not want this to happen. So as you can see, basically all of the surrounding neighbors, the ones that are not colored red, we were unable to reach them within this short period of time. But everybody who has been contacted does not want this to occur. The last page then is talking about noise. I know you've talked about making it music inside only. However, shouting activities, school dances, rock concerts were kind of the things I could use to measure how impactful sound would be. And the website's listed there for how loud these particular types of entertainment are. And that then results, even at a 3/10 of a mile distance, which is where all these surrounding neighbors are at, up to a 60 decibel level. And a normal household level is about 40 decibels. So you're going to be left with a lot of noise, even if it is trying to be contained within a property. And then the last is that there is an aquifer below this particular property, and per the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, this aquifer is not very productive, and a typical well in the area only produces 15 gallons per minute. So as a result, if there was now 295 people on a nightly basis, there could be problems with our well system as a result of this. So we understand that entertainment venues are part of the community, but this is just not the right location for such a facility. There are too many established households already surrounding the property and have been used by people longer that are living in our community, and we just can't count on somebody who's not even living here to be able to worry about how this is going to affect their neighbors. So I urge you to reject this exception.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Mr. President?
Yes.
The question about proper notice, we did discover it was made.
It was made?
Yeah, we do have a record of it here.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ed Zell. I live at 2800 Fox Lair Drive, West Lafayette, just south of Mr. Baker. I can't really say a whole lot much more than what he has said, except one of the things is the noise level. We've noticed that when the Mox has had parties there, it was well into the night. They were very loud, but it only happened once in a while, which was okay. But this, I think, is 7 day a week. They could have people out there all the time and disturbing. And we all live out in the country because we like the peace and quiet and the wildlife and those things. One of the things that, when he talked about the traffic on the road, my driveway would be to the east of the property in question. And I even have trouble pulling out of my driveway when there's westbound traffic coming. They're going so fast. I'll pull out on Jackson Highway thinking nobody's coming, and then all of a sudden I've got somebody right on me. And I can't imagine what it would be like to have 100 cars going to a venue, or 70, whatever the parking is there, and would fear for accidents and things that just shouldn't happen. So we are also opposing this ordinance and hope that you would consider that. And I have a letter that I mailed in, but I'm not sure that you got it. I did not get any notice whatsoever. My property does not butt up against the Knox's property, but it is right next to the Bakers, so I'm as close as anybody.
I think, is it 400 feet of the property, I believe? So his is more than 400, so you would not get direct notification, but there would be signage.
But I'd still be affected, is my point.
Right, but it follows our guidelines.
I understand that, yes. So I have this letter that I'm sending.
Thank you. Yep. It did not get read into the record, so.
It's different, okay.
Correct. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Peter Langrish, 2934 Fox Lair Drive. So I'm speaking in opposition. It's a good thing Mr. Baker went first. I think he covered almost every base. My wife wrote a letter much longer, pretty much hits all the same points though. But our concerns, if I just bullet them really quick, are it is a very dark, peaceful, quiet area. Sound carries, light carries, so that's a concern. I'd be very concerned about our property values. I know when I was looking to buy there, if I'd have known there was a party barn or any thought of a party barn showing up, I absolutely would not have bought it. That's the point of buying out there. We're concerned about the noise, the traffic. There's plenty of other venues, as Mr. Baker already said, so there's really no point in one more venue. They're just simply monetizing empty land, and we're going to be the ones that pay for it. Have serious issues with the road safety. We did our own checking into that, and it's well below, when you go into that blind curve, it's well below the required distances you need to stop safely. And that would even be if it was straight, well lit, going around that corner. I think it's like 190 feet, which requires like 200 and some feet for a safe stop. So, and I know when I pull it onto the road, and I'm just down the road, and I join right up to it, but when I pull out onto that road there, that's probably the most dangerous part of my day. Just that initial, because you'll look left, you'll look right, you think you're good, and well, there's a car right on top of you. And I think I have a better scenario than this. So that's a real concern. And additionally, we only have a volunteer fire department out there. So any response, be it fire or accident, is going to be a slow response. So we definitely don't want more fatalities out there. And, I don't know about if the guns are being fired on that land, but there's guns that fire from that direction. And it's loud enough and close enough that, I'd bring the kids inside and we get behind the brick. So, that's a real concern for us. So just a few points there, much longer letter over there, though. So, but, I hope you guys will definitely oppose this and not provide the exception. Thank you.
Thank you. In opposition?
Mike Brzezinski, 4853 Thimbleweed Drive, or Lane, in West Lafayette, 47906. A neighborhood just nearby. Although it's not within the 400 feet, I can attest to hearing the noise when there have been parties there. I can't imagine what it'll be like if you have a agricultural rental hall there with consistent activities on a daily basis. A significant number of homes in this area are 1 to 2 acre lots. They're designed to create a spacious, tranquil, and private residential living experience. The proposed zoning exception that's being requested to build this hall is incongruent with the design, with the intent, and with the atmosphere of the surrounding area and neighborhood. This large facility that can accommodate nearly 300 individuals will add a commercial feel and presence to a neighborhood that is not designed for such a purpose. It will significantly increase the noise level with the planned outdoor area. And even if it was confined, revised to this indoor, people coming in and out, noise travels very easily in that area because it's a wide open space. Perhaps most importantly, I think it's been highlighted by other people already tonight, is the severe traffic problem on that road, Jackson Highway. That road is not large. I can't imagine what it will be like if you have numerous vehicles traveling as been described tonight. It will be very, very bad. Our surrounding residential community will suffer if this is approved. I urge you to deny this request. I strongly oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition. And just a reminder to try not bring up too much of the comments that other people have made.
Hi, I'm Frances Gaylord, and I live at 2021 Klondike Road, West Lafayette. I also own property adjoining Mr. Baker's property at 2901 Foxglove Drive, and I'm here in opposition. I've been in opposition with the growth and expansion for many years, simply because I've owned Klondike Road property for close to 31 years. And with that, it was royal. It was country. An acre of property, and we were in the country. And I'm not going to try to bring up what I agree totally with Mr. Baker and what all the other people have said about expansion of businesses. I have a pole barn business next to the Klondike right now. Excuse me. It has a pooch and play business in it, and they're about 40 feet, and I have mature trees, and we've had a roundabout come into that area. So comparing that to the royal countryside with the covenant to stop growth of community around us, that the Foxlair property is about. We've had drainage issues for over 20-some years with the expansion of Klondike Road, the roundabout, Highway 231, and the expansion of 26, I believe, with the railroad, the arms, and all of this for safety. But the drainage has been a big issue, and that will happen up there on Foxlair area to all those properties that are joining this pole barn for this business. So I'm just upset that a lot of thought has not gone into a yes or a no vote today to give people such as us as owners an opportunity to present a better and stronger non-support for this. This business should not be out in the country like that. And it's up to you as area planners to make sure you're protecting all property owners. I am against this.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition.
My name is Scott Frankenberger. I live on 2724 North 475 West, which is about 2 properties over to the east of this. I won't repeat a lot of what Mr. Baker and others have said. I think given the time frame that we had here, we've done some amazing research against this proposal, which, in my opinion, seems a little bit cobbled together. I don't feel like it's a well-thought-out plan. Mr. Baker's touched on a lot of issues. I think the other thing that is of concern to us is the road issue, which has been mentioned many times. And also, I guess, you know, we, the property owners who have signed the petition and other things, we're invested in this, in living here. And, you know, we're at the mercy of a proposal that comes from some people who have chosen not to live in the area. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm saying, you know, we have made our investments, and we want to be able to enjoy the area that we live in free of this proposal. We feel like it's inappropriate for our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalie Baker. I also live at 2900 Foxlair Drive. I spoke with a lot of the neighbors regarding this, and I was fortunate enough to do that. And so I first want to read one letter from a neighbor who was unable to be here tonight. To the Board of Zoning Appeals, my husband and myself feel this is a very bad choice for a large venue with traffic, noise, and other problems. How close is this to the aquifer? Please take care what you decide, especially since the driveway has proven dangerous. Signed, Dr. Dale Miller and Professor Virgine Miller. They live at 2728 North 475 West. I also wrote a letter that you have. I will not go over all of it because most things have already been said. The one thing that I would like to point out is that from what we understand, as my husband said, we never received the notice of this. So we were notified by neighbors. We understand that the Knoxes included a letter in with this hearing notice. Something that was in their letter, they stated that when they bought the property, we had only dreamed, and I quote, "We had only dreamed of living somewhere so beautiful until it became a reality," unquote. We too, my husband and I, share that exact sentiment when we bought our property. The difference now is that they were able to enjoy the peace and quiet, the beauty of the nature and wildlife, and the privacy that country living affords the entire time that they live there. Now they have moved to Naples, Florida, and they want to take that all away from all of us neighbors. So I please ask that you consider that when you vote. I would also like to ask you a couple questions. One, would you want this facility in your backyard? And two, would you purchase a property if you knew this facility was in your backyard? If you are unable to answer yes to either of those questions, then I would ask that you please deny this special exception. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition.
Hello, my name is Shirley Zell. I also live at 2800 Foxglare Drive. We are neighbors to the lady that just spoke. We're right close to it. I guess possibly our property is within 400 feet, but our house isn't. So we didn't get a notice. The one thing that I don't feel like anybody has brought up so far is the adverse effects of an operation like this on people. You'd have the noise. To me, the worst that I feel would be when I pull out of my drive now, I have people, I'll look both ways. I'm a very careful, I've never had a ticket, never been pulled over. I look both ways and I pull out, and numerous times I've had somebody just laying on the horn behind me. They just came around that curve, laying on the horn. So it is a very volatile situation. You just really should consider, look at it, consider the adverse effects that it can have on somebody's life.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition.
Good evening. My name is Edward Mascunas. I'm the homeowner and I live at 4820 Jackson Highway. I'll keep my remarks brief, but I just wanted to voice my opposition to this variance request. For a lot of the reasons that have been mentioned already, the safety of the traffic, I too can vouch for the need to look both ways when I exit my driveway directly onto Jackson Highway. It can be a very busy thoroughfare, and the proposed entertainment venue I feel would endanger not only myself, but my fellow neighbors and community members. As far as noise and light pollution, I don't think this can be understated, and a diagram doesn't do it full justice. As has been said, noise travels very far and wide in our area. It's an agricultural area that is home to many people, and I think that noise and light pollution can affect us all. So I ask you respectfully to please deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition. Last call. And Mr. Knox, you have a chance to rebut.
Okay, wow. I wanted to start out and apologize to all of our neighbors, or former neighbors, because although this was slightly cobbled together, there was no malicious intent towards anybody. I think one clear thing that is really positive from this meeting tonight is we're all in agreement about how horrible the entrance of this property, maybe not just ours, but this whole curvature is. Anyhow, I think that's beside the point for the purposes tonight. I'm going to request that we do a continuance on our BZA 2068 until the next meeting, if that's possible. I'm not sure what the necessary protocols are for that.
You just...
Perfect. And then I didn't know if, I'm going to try to reach out to some of the opposition if they're willing to talk with us, but I appreciate everybody's time, and again, to everybody, I apologize, and this was not done in any malicious intent. And I hope that we can talk and understand, and even if we can't figure this whole thing out, we can all work together towards fixing the issue of people dying here, because I actually found one of the people in our other neighbor, David, he's one of the first responders they talked about, he found both of them. So hopefully we can figure that out regardless of this situation, but I appreciate everybody's time, and again, apologize to all of you for anything malicious felt. So
Just to confirm, you'd like to continue to the January 26th meeting?
So, yeah, let's do that.
You're allowed essentially 2 continuances within a 6-month time span, so you could continue to February if you like, for example, if you think you need more time.
Yeah, let's continue to February just to be safe.
February?
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah.
We're going to need to, if you have a question, please come up.
get done with him maybe.
Right, and then essentially he has the right to ask for a continuance.
Even though you stated that it was supposed to be a vote tonight on denying or going forward? Isn't that
Right.
what you all?
He has the right to a continuance, which means that it'll be heard again in February. And we appreciate his effort in reaching out.
Okay.
Whether or not you guys resolve anything or not, at least you have a chance to air your concerns.
Okay.
Before it comes back to us to make a decision. And then at the February meeting, we will then,
Okay, well, this just brings back 30 years, or 20-some years, I'll go that close, of history about Lafayette, Venetian Blind, and American
Yeah,
Suburban
that's-
developing over that, because that was also done just like that, voted or not, and then you had another meeting, and you had all these changes that they had an opportunity to present to the board, and next thing we do is, here's
it
village
has
going
to come back before us in order to be approved or denied. And
So he can find.
I don't know if staff can, collect names or anything, if somebody wants to be notified about it, or,
Yeah, the fact that it is being held, anyone who is here has obviously notification.
Notification, yeah.
So that the rules of the Board of Zoning Appeals are based on state law, and we're following those rules, so there is a continuance to February.
And the reason is just because he's wanting to, what?
Because he requested a continuance, and
Verbally, but
that's what the
yet-
rules provide, and we're following the rules.
I'll make a motion.
okay,
I'll make a
and
motion
that's it.
before it's done, and she'd like your name for the record again. Is it
Francis Gaylord.
Francis Gaylord? Okay.
So does
Thank you.
that mean we have to present the same procedures again? And you're going to
It'll
hear
come
everything
up.
about denying it? And he's going to have a better tweaked plan for a highway and a road and driveway utilities that he then
yeah.
brings in?
Let's have you talk to staff about it, because we don't have, control over, all that, or answers
Did
for
you
all
have a
that.
motion?
I'm going to make a motion, Steve, that we continue this case per the petitioner's request to the February 23rd, 2022 meeting as requested by the petitioner.
Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of continuing this to our February meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can you ask staff, please? Can you ask our area plan staff up here at the front table?
My only concern is, will you all be here at the February meeting?
We hope so.
There may be us and more people.
Oh,
This
that'd be
is a
great.
7-member
But as
board.
long
It's a
as
7-member, there are
as
5
long
of
as
us
you'll be
here.
Very good.
Okay, let's move on.
If there's any other procedural questions about how we do business here, come over and talk
Yeah.
to me after we're done. They need to wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, unless any member has an objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority decision of the board to be the collective findings of the board in support of the decision of the board. Hearing none, it is so ordered. Any administrative matters?
We have none.
I will take the last motion.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thank you for, I was going to ask.